He didn't come closer because he was ready. He came closer because he felt you pulling away. And that was the day something in you started to break open. Because for so long, you thought his return meant love. You thought the warmth, the message, the sudden attention, the way he reached for you again, meant he had finally felt your value. But what hurt was this: he was often most present when he thought he might lose access to you. Not when you were loving him, not when you were patient, not when you were trying to understand him, when you got quiet, when you stopped leaning in, when you started to leave. That is what makes this kind of pattern so hard to name. It does not feel empty. It feels almost honest. It gives you just enough to make the distance hurt, then just enough to make hope come back. So your mind did what a hurting mind does. It tried to solve the pattern. You replayed his tenderness. You searched for meaning in the timing. You asked yourself if maybe he needed space. Maybe he was scared. Maybe this was just his way of loving. But the truth was harsher than that. He didn't only respond to your presence. He reacted to your absence. And those are not the same thing. You felt it in small moments first. The phone lighting up after days of nothing. The sudden softness right when you had finally gone still. The way he could feel your withdrawal faster than he could feel your pain. That's what exhausted you. Because you were not asking to be chased when you left. You were asking to be cared for while you stayed. And when that care only appeared after distance, your mind started turning love into strategy. Without even meaning to, you began wondering if being less available was the only way to be felt. If your silence worked better than your honesty. If leaving touched him more than loving him. That was the first cost. You stopped feeling safe to be real, and started feeling safer to disappear. You didn't stay because he gave you nothing. You stayed because every time you started accepting the truth, he gave you just enough to interrupt it. That was the trap. If he had been cold all the way through, your heart would have had something clean to leave. But he wasn't. He knew how to return with softness. A message that felt warmer. A look that made you feel seen again. A sudden effort right when you were getting tired. And those moments were small, but they landed hard because they touched the exact part of you that was starving. So you kept thinking the return meant something bigger. Not just that he missed your absence, but that he was finally realizing what you meant to him. You let yourself believe maybe this was the moment it would turn. Maybe the distance had shown him what closeness could not. That hope made emotional sense at the time. Because the ache underneath this wasn't only about losing him, it was about wanting to stop feeling optional. And when he came back tender, attentive, a little more open than usual, it felt like relief. Like maybe you hadn't imagined the connection. Like maybe all the waiting had not been for nothing. So your mind protected those moments. It held on to the version of him that reached back. The version that sounded sure for 5 minutes. The version that made you exhale and think, there you are. And that's why leaving felt so hard. You were not only walking away from pain, you were walking away from the hope that one day his effort would stop arriving only after your withdrawal. You felt it in real moments, staring at a message and reading it twice because it sounded like the man you'd wanted all along. Feeling your body soften after days of tension, telling yourself not to overthink it this time. Wanting to believe consistency was finally beginning, when really it was only another reaction to distance. That's what made the pattern cruel. The good moments were real enough to touch you, just not steady enough to hold you. And little by little, hope stopped feeling like warmth. It started feeling like the reason you couldn't let the truth stay true. The cost was not only that he gave you less, The cost was that you started needing less out loud so he wouldn't disappear again. That's how this kind of pain works. It doesn't always break you in one obvious moment. Sometimes it trains you slowly. It teaches you to watch his mood before you speak, to rewrite the message so it sounds lighter, to remove the part where you say, "This hurt me," to act like you understand, when really you're just trying not to lose the little bit of warmth he still gives. You checked your phone, then hated yourself for caring. You saw his name, then felt relief before you felt anger. You told yourself not to ask for too much, because every time you asked plainly, something in him pulled back. So you got careful. Not because you were needy, because his inconsistency made honesty feel dangerous. That's the part many women miss for a long time. You were not becoming calmer because peace had entered the connection. You were becoming quieter because you had learned that your full voice might cost you access. And once that starts, the damage gets intimate. You begin feeling grateful for basic effort. A reply becomes reassurance. A little attention feels like repair. A soft moment after distance starts to feel bigger than it is, because your heart has been surviving on so little. That's how crumbs start feeling meaningful. Not because you're foolish, because deprivation changes the size of what feels like relief. You lived it in real scenes, holding your phone and deleting half the text, waiting to see what version of him you were getting that day, swallowing the question because you already knew the shame of asking twice, pretending you were fine so the moment wouldn't collapse, smiling through confusion because the truth felt too humiliating to say out loud. And all the while, something painful was happening inside you. You were becoming easier to keep because you had learned to ask for less. That's the cost his hot and cold behavior left in you. Not just sadness, not just waiting, a slow separation from your own natural voice. You stopped asking to be met and started trying to be manageable. The shift did not happen when you stopped caring. It happened when you saw that his attention kept waking up only after your distance did. And once you saw that clearly, something in you could no longer call it love in the same way. Because love does not need your withdrawal to become responsive. Care does not wait for your absence to become visible. That was the quiet line. Not a loud ending, not a dramatic speech, just a moment inside yourself where you stopped confusing his reaction with his readiness. You stopped turning every return into proof. You stopped treating every soft message like change. You stopped letting one warm moment erase the full pattern. That kind of limit is private. No one sees it at first, but it changes everything. It sounds like this. I can see that he reaches when I pull away. I can also see that this is not the same as being held well. And that truth hurts, because part of you still wants to believe the next return will be different. Part of you still remembers the relief of hearing from him, the softening in your chest, the quick hope, the brief feeling that maybe this time he finally understands. But now you can feel something else too. The exhaustion after, the instability underneath it, the way your peace keeps getting interrupted by the same pattern wearing a different moment. So the limit becomes simple. You stop using your distance to get what your honesty could not get. You stop stepping back just to see if he'll come forward. You stop measuring love by how urgently he reacts when access is threatened, because that kept you trapped. It made your leaving feel powerful, and your staying feel invisible. It taught your heart the wrong lesson, that being felt meant becoming less reachable first. But you know better now. You were never meant to disappear just to be noticed. You were never meant to become hard to reach just to feel important. So this is where you stop crossing yourself to keep the connection alive. Not because he is a monster, because you can no longer keep paying for brief returns with your own peace. When you stop living inside his pattern, you do not lose love. You lose the confusion that kept calling itself love. And that is where your life starts coming back. Not all at once, not dramatically, but quietly, in the places that had been tense for too long. Your mornings feel less crowded. Your chest feels less busy. Your phone stops feeling like a place where your worth will be decided. You sit in a room without waiting for it to light up. You tell the truth in your own mind without rushing to soften it. That kind of return is dignified because it is real. You are not pretending he meant nothing. You are not forcing yourself not to care. You are simply no longer handing your peace to a pattern that only woke up when you stepped away. And little by little, something steady returns. Your voice returns first. The part of you that does not want to edit every feeling into something easier to receive. The part that can say, "This hurt me," without feeling ashamed for having a heart. The part that no longer mistakes being wanted in moments for being cherished in a life. Then your warmth returns. Not the strained warmth that keeps hoping harder. Your real warmth. The soft, calm part of you that does not need to disappear to be noticed. The part that does not have to become scarce to feel important. That is what changes now. You stop using distance to create value. You stop treating your absence like proof of your worth. You stop calling a reaction love when what you needed was care that stayed. And what comes back with that truth is not bitterness, it is steadiness. You can breathe without waiting. You can care without chasing. You can miss what was good without giving the whole pattern another name. You can remember him without reopening the door inside yourself. Because the deepest truth was never that you were hard to love. It was that you kept standing in a place where your leaving was noticed more than your staying. And you do not belong in love like that. You belong where your presence is valued before your absence has to teach the lesson.